Hi everybody, my name is Jan Dufour and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today I'm going to show you how to make place cards for your Thanksgiving dinner, or of course any design can be changed and you can make it for whatever holiday or reason, family gathering that you're having. I'm going to show you different ways to do things, and by doing them different ways, I'm going to be showing you different techniques, which this is more about techniques than it is about, coloring the pumpkin, etc. But I wanted to show you a split die, which means that I've only cut out the top part of the die so that when you fold it, it opens up and it can be set on your table. And again, I'll show you different ways that you can do those things. The first thing you need is your place card base, which is cut at 5.5 by 4 1/4, which is the size of an A2 card. And then I want you to make tick marks halfway down the 5.5 side. And what I mean by that is you can use a stylus, you can use your scoring tool, however you want to do that. But at 2 3/4, which is half of 4 or 5.5, I'm gonna make sure it's in the right spot here. I'm bringing my scoring tool and I'm only doing just a small smidgen, and then again on the other side, just at the edge. I'll try to show it to you. I don't know how well it's going to show up on the camera, but there's a mark here and a mark here, and that will help you when you do your partial die cut. And the way you do your partial die cut for the pumpkin, for example, I have one already loaded here. Those little tick marks right up here are where I place the tape, the bottom of the tape. So I know that I want to use my cutting plate all the way up until I get to this spot. So what that means is, I'm going to take my much loved plates here and show you. I generally think that staggering the two cutting plates a little bit is most helpful. And of course you want to make sure that the top plate is only going up to those 2 tick marks. Now, Stampin' Up's cutting plates are slightly beveled, and that's great 99% of the time, because getting it into the cutting machine, it makes it much easier. It slides in faster. But for doing a partial die cut, if I only put this edge up to that line, right where those Post-it notes are, it's actually going to stop cutting about here because of the bevel. So you have to actually use, again, I'm not sure how well you'll see this, but at the end of the bevel is where you want to place up against those lines. So let me bring the cutting machine over. I usually have it off camera because it's takes up a lot of space. Not space when it's put away, but space when I'm trying to show you something. So I'm going to load this in here. Again, remember, we're cutting the top. I've cut the bottom before, and that doesn't work out well. And we want the end of the beveled edge, which is right here, on the Post-it note line. So I'm going to lay that down so that I have it on the Post-it note edge, and put it into the cutter. Of course I have this I have this not set up the way I normally do that. Let me turn it now that I've got it in. It's really not hard to do, but on camera maybe a little bit. All right, I'm gonna get rid of this right away and get rid of that top plate and pull this off. And show you what we got here. I can move this out of the way as well. So when you take off the design, here we go. I can do this and put that aside. Oops, I left a little piece of tape here. I'll get that off in a second. You'll notice on this side, it was perfect. It's right on the scoring line. This one came down a little bit below, but I will show you that it doesn't really matter. Below is a little bit better than not enough. Now, if you cut and it's not enough, you can always take your scissors and just clip it down to that scoring line. If it's a little bit more, like you can see right here, nobody's going to notice that. I promise. We're going to decorate it. So on top of this, we're going to take a piece of DSP, which again, I've already got cut, and I will have all of the measurements down below. If you're on my blog, if you're on YouTube, there'll be a link to my blog where all of the directions will be. But this piece of DSP is 4.5 by 2.5, and directionally it should be in the portrait mode. Now, with the stripe, it would be whichever way you want the stripe to go, but you don't want your flowers or whatever you're using upside down. So that basically goes there. We're going to use some glue on that and put that down. Oops. And like I said, this really isn't about making it so much. Well, apparently I had that laying out longer than I should have. Let's stick a pin in it. Isn't that what they say? All right, so we're gonna put some glue down, maybe. Oh, really? I love lives, don't you? This is just really fun. Now I have 2 sticky pins I have to clean. Come on. Oh, there we go. Very much coming out. All right. Oh, yeah, now it's really coming out. All right. Here we go. We're going to put this down, make the edges, and with the glue, we can move it around a little bit. And again, that little tiny cut up there, nobody's ever going to see that. So we're good with that. And then I took a pumpkin, which I stamped ahead, of course. And the method I used for coloring, which is another technique. So we get the partial die cut. And then I'm going to use my blender pen instead of using black, Memento Black, which is a solid color, and when you color over it, it stays solid. I'm going to use just my blender pen because this color will bleed or spread, however you want to say, with just a blender pen. So you could, any stamp that you use with our regular dye inks, you can do this too. Now, be aware of a few things. One, this is on regular cardstock, so it'll only handle so much water before it starts to peel up, which is not a good look. The other thing is, if you wanted to add more color, and I've shown this before, when your pad is closed, if you squeeze the middle a little bit and then open it up, you get ink on the inside of your cover. Some people don't like that look either. So you can also take a block, stamp it, and get color that way. The whole point is, if you want more color without doing too much damage to the actual paper by adding too much water, you can use the color that you can get from either using the block, and you know, it will take some of this blender. The other thing you can do if you want more color on there and it looks like it's not taking any more nicely without starting to look like it's pilling, if you will, you can just let it dry and then add some more. I'm showing you different ways to get the ink. I can tell right in here it's starting to get blotchy. So that's about as much color as it wants to get, and that's fine. And then, of course, you just have to clean this off, which I will do later. Let me get that off screen for right now. So then you have this, and you can glue it. It really, so I'm being really bad with the glue. I'm not putting it back in the, with the holder, and it's getting clogged up, which it doesn't normally do, but there you have it. And so then you're gonna glue that on there. And the way I got this decoration, of course, is I used a different, so the stamp set is Hello Harvest, and the dies are from Rustic Pumpkin Dies. I also used one of my other favorite ones now, Stylish Shapes. It puts a, I don't want to say, not a cut line, it puts a pin dot kind of holes, I can't remember what they call them, along the outer edge, as well as cutting it, as well as having the dots on the other piece of cardstock. So that, if you wanted to use it for a frame, would also have the pin dots. I probably didn't explain that very well, but anyway. And in the case of this, I used a different stamp set called our Alpha Best. And there's another quick tip for lining it up. I first put my letters right on a piece of grid paper. I lined them up on the line so I knew that they were straight already, and then went ahead and stamped it. You can position this anywhere. If I had lined them up over here, I would just center it and decide where I wanted it. And then you can just use a piece of washi tape or Post-it note tape. If you don't want to use a magnet, I've got a couple small ones which will help hold it in place, and then you can stamp your name. I do want to tell you though, and I learned this in scrapbooking, it's nice to see handwriting because it's reminiscent. Kids will recognize your handwriting forever. One of my, most cherished things are things that my mother wrote on that I instantly recognize, as well as my dad. But I wanted to show you another thing. In this case, if you're concerned, maybe you really decorate this a lot and you have lots and lots of things on it and you feel like it's starting to do this, you can make a simple easel, I guess, to attach the two. And you would do that with a piece of cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 1. And you score it at 1, 2 1/8, 3 1/4, and then it's a simple accordion fold. I thought I had an inch one here, but I don't think I do. Yeah, I'll show you what I mean. This is actually wider, but it doesn't matter. Make sure you have your scoring blade. So you would score it at 1, 2 1/8. 2 1/8? Yeah. 3 1/2? Oh, no, 3 1/4. Again, I will have all of these measurements where they need to be. And then you just fold them so you have the letter M. You put the glue on both bases of the M. Set your first one down. Hold it until it's completely stable, and then close that up and you will end up with an easel in the proper place. So that's another technique. See, what else can I tell you? The other thing is you can, I want to show you using, making it more simple. Sometimes we get over crazy because of holidays and we want to do a lot of things. This one's colored in and it is pretty, but it's rather simple. If you decide after you've gone the simple route and you just think there's not quite enough there, using little gems would work very good. And along this set there are little scrolls of ferns or vines or going to be leaves when they grow up type thing. You can lay a couple of those down and that instantly makes it a little bit dressier. So you can keep that in mind. I colored this simply, no shading. Just used a couple of blending pens. And I only used the light version of all three. Again, those will be listed below, but it's Pale Papaya, Orchid Oasis, and Orchid Oasis rather, and Mossy Meadow. So I use those to color those in, and by using a colored background, because those are blender pens, this still looks yellow. It isn't water-based, so it doesn't blend with the color in the background. So keep that in mind when you're using blender pens. Of course, that works best on light colors. That's another tip there. And let's see, what else did I get? The other thing you can use in this particular set has really cute pumpkins that are just embossed. They're not die cut out. So I'm going to show you quickly how to make this one and this one. They're actually done differently. This one comes out a little bit darker, and this one has a more subtle coloring of it. So the way I did that was by taking a blender brush, again using Cajun Craze. The first one, I went ahead and just I went ahead and just put it through the die cut machine the way you do when you're embossing. I got my embossed piece and then I lightly colored it this way. And that's what you get when you do that. It does highlight the indentations, but more by getting the edges of it and the actual space rather than coloring in the negative space. And for this one, the negative space is darker, and I did that by applying ink to the actual die cut. And it's not going to hurt this at all. You can put some on the edges. It does make a difference. I am wiping off a little bit because I don't want it to be completely blobbed up. The funny thing that I didn't understand as well when I was doing it is, and I think I have to show this to you up close, when you first put ink on it, let me see, I think maybe this will show. You first put ink on it, you can see the ink, and then it seems to disappear. And I thought, this isn't going to work. But when I put it through the die cut machine, it actually does work. It doesn't go away. It just seems to be disappeared. I don't know how else to call it. And then you just need to clean up your die afterwards. But what you get is the embossed part is actually more colorful than the debossed, which is the lighter color there. And again, just using, and your handwriting doesn't have to be perfect. These aren't all perfect, but I did make it look more like my handwriting, and I think they'll appreciate that when they do it. Let's see, what else do I have? You can always fussy cut, and that's a dirty word around some people. And I guess it depends. Here's another one I did. I'll show you this first. There's a die cut. It cuts this out. But if you don't have the dies and you have the stamp set, you could fussy cut this and maybe not necessarily go into every deep. Some things are easier to fussy cut than others. That's something you should take into consideration. For example, if you don't have the dies or a die to whatever you are using, this is a much easier thing to fussy cut. So consider that when you are considering doing some fussy cutting. Another thing you can do, which I did on this one and another one, is, there isn't two sizes of this, so you don't have the shadow die, but you can get that same effect simply by lowering this a little bit. Now, it doesn't go all the way around, but it looks like it's got a border all the way around it. And it brings out and makes this a little bit more intense by having the darker color behind it. I did that also with this, and you'll notice I didn't color these in. So I didn't use the black because I think just having it black would make it stand out too much. So I used the Cajun Craze. I did the highlighting effect by off-centering it a little bit. And even that makes it stand out a little bit more without doing the coloring. So if you're doing 3 of these, go ahead and color them. If you're doing 25 of these, you might not want to color. And let me see, did I get everything I wanted to tell you? Yeah, I think that's it. So hopefully you learned something that is helpful to be used in a later time. Again, you can do this for Thanksgiving, obviously, but you can also do it any other time of the year. Anytime you're having people over, having little place cards is fun. It's very quick. Oh, one thing I didn't show you. If you just absolutely have tried doing, let me get one card, the staggered or partial die cut, and it's just not working for you, you can always just stand it up. It doesn't really make a difference. It looks fancier if it's die cut out. People will go, oh, how did you do that? Or they might not even notice it. So however you want to do it, it was just partial die cuts can be very interesting when you put them in different situations. If you have a demonstrator, then go to them and order these sets if you like. If you do not have a demonstrator, I'd be happy to help you with any order that you would like. My online store is jandufor.stampinup.net. If you have any questions and you'd like to contact me, you can contact me at jandufor@yahoo.com. If you're on YouTube and seeing this and you'd like to go to my blog, which is where I'm going to have the directions for all of this, you can go to stampmesilly.com. Thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Have a great holiday. Bye.